Next In.
Welcome to Next In, where today we've got Aaron Rice coming to us with a fairly untraditional background. And so today we're going to be able to learn about how he went from songwriting, music, all the way into joining a private practice where he now is in legal. So welcome, Aaron. And I would love to just start by just a little bit about you, man.
Thanks. Happy to be here. This is going to be fun. So I spent 15 years, 20 years as a professional songwriter, 15 signed to either major or boutique publishers, and loved my time doing that. Had a decent run as a songwriter and had, a couple Billboard chart-topping songs, a couple Grammy nominations, things like that. Then through as
what are some of the songs that we would know of?
Oh man, so I worked a lot in 3 different genres. I worked in pop, I worked in country, and I worked in Christian and gospel. In the Christian and gospel world, I had 6 Billboard #1s. I worked a lot with an artist named Toby Mac, who is one of the GOATs there, and So I co-wrote Made to Love for him, which got a Grammy nomination. I'm For You, Get Back Up. Yeah. So I was signed to Universal Music, signed to his publishing company, which sold to one of the Universal entities. And so I was there for about 12, 13 years. Then at the end of that, I fell in love with artist development, just helping young artists and writers get to the next level of their career, whatever that happened to be. And I realized as a songwriter and not as a performer myself, I realized that my success was always tied to someone else, right? I wrote this song and then somebody else had to go carry it and make it famous. Nobody knows who I am. Nobody, which was fine. That was never my dream or goal, but I fell in love with that. How do I support the next level? So ended up doing some artist development, was like 5 for 5 getting people record deals or major distribution agreements. And then kind of got involved in some legal talks with the songwriting community and fell in love with the legal side. Took my lawyer to lunch one day and was like, I want to go to law school. And she was like, you're crazy. But I mean, it really was. I was driving down. I'm in.
I'm writing stuff all day, every day, anyways. So might as well turn it into.
So it was a crazy aha moment, or whatever. I'm in Nashville. I was driving into downtown Nashville from Brentwood, where I live, and past the Nashville School of Law, and saw the freeway sign, Nashville School of Law, next exit. I literally picked up my phone.
You swerved. You're like, next exit. We're taking it.
Right.
We're taking it hard.
I grabbed my phone, which don't do that if you're driving, and called my wife and was like, I want to go to law school. And I was 41 at the time. And she was like, you'll be great. Do it. So I took my lawyer to lunch and said, I think I want to do this. And she was like, it's rare that we have a successful songwriter move into that. And I mean, successful in quotes. It's
rare that you get anyone at the age of 40 plus to go, sure. Yes, I guess I want to go to law school now and do more education and start a new career at the age of 40. And that's amazing.
Yep. So that's what I did. It was funny with that day of lunch. She said, hey, I think you need to go look at the LSAT because that registration's coming up. And it was literally that day. So I went home at like 3 p.m. was like, all right, we're doing this. Like pulled my credit card out, registered, and there we go.
That's incredible. So how long did that take though? What was that like? How long was that journey of like, all right, well, music was amazing. I got these accolades, all these awards. You're like, okay, well, I mean, what was that? What was the legal thing that you got most passionate about, right? So there was something, you're like, I spoke to my lawyer, but like, What about the law in your world hit a spark? Like, where was that?
There were 2 major things. The first one was I had written and produced 2 albums for a for a record company in New York that after doing them went bankrupt, quote unquote bankrupt, and left me holding a big bill that they did not pay. Then he turns around, the label owner turns around and releases one of the songs and doesn't license it. And I realized it was going to cost me more in legal fees than I would ever recover. And so I was like, that was a little bit of a spur toward it. Then at that time, also, there was a piece of legislation that has since been passed called the Music Modernization Act, which talks about how songwriters get paid. Well, that's my community. That's my people. And I had nothing to do with the legislation, but I remember being a part of some of those kind of early conversations with other writers. Right at that time, there was a statistic going around in Nashville that was probably 2015, 2016, that there were 85% less full-time songwriters in Nashville than there were in 2005. So in 10 years, like our community of people who were actually able to sustain it as a songwriter and only a songwriter was declining. And I thought, if somebody doesn't do something to help us,
they go extinct.
Exactly. The songwriting as a career is almost impossible. I will be honest, I went to law school thinking, I'll just help songwriters now and then. I did not anticipate going into an actual practice. But going to the National School of Law thing, that's where I planned on going. I ended up getting recruited from a school in Minnesota that had built a program geared towards second career lawyers. And it was really, really cool. It was kind of like an executive MBA program, but it was accredited by the Bar Association. I flew back and forth. But from LSAT, from the conversations where I decided I want to do it till the end was about 4 years.
It's not that bad. That's not that long.
I gained a bunch of weight. I studied. I lived off of royalties. I told myself at 41, I am not going into debt. I'm not taking school loans out. So we lived off of my music, and my wife had a job. So we lived off of her income and my music. I drove Uber on the weekends. Was crazy. Like I would be in the car driving for Uber, and songs that I wrote would come on the radio, and people would sing along. And I was like, do I tell them? Do I not? But it was a cool story because it was like, I did not want to wreck our family budget. So I was like, I don't care. I'll drive for Uber to pay for law school. And between the scholarships they gave me and that, graduated debt-free, made it through, and here we are.
That's incredible. So tell me about your practice today.
So I went solo when I first graduated, and I knew eventually I would land in entertainment fully, but I did the hey, I'm a solo lawyer. I'll do everything. I'll write a will. I'll do It didn't last long. Entertainment, and I think a lot of it was relationships and my connections and my experience. But about a year into solo practice, I got approached by a firm in Atlanta called Founders Legal. Founders Legal started for tech startups and small business startups, hence the name Founders, or the branding Founders. And they said, hey, Nashville's kind of a hot spot for tech startups now. We do IP, trademark, patent work. We want to start an entertainment business, and we want a Nashville office. Would you consider, kind of helping that happen? So I now run the Nashville office. I'm the chair of the entertainment group. I brought a colleague with me who is an entrepreneur as well, but he was a solo lawyer. And he and I had already been talking about merging practices. And so the two of us came over to Founders together. I've been there just over a year. 80 to 90% of what I do is songwriters, record producers, artists. So I'm doing publishing deals. I'm doing recording agreements. I'm doing, anything they have to do. I don't do a lot of like copyright litigation. I am very, very picky about that, given my background and what makes sense in the industry and with the creative process.
So you're more transactional in nature.
Yes.
Prepping people, preparing people, trying to help them feel secure and confident in the decisions when contracts are being made, when they're negotiating with a publisher potentially, or
Yep.
on the publisher side, how to protect. Are you more artist forward or?
I'm definitely more artist forward. Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I imagine those are two very different conversations, right? One's like protect me, and then one of them is like, let's just make sure we can get as much as we can.
Right. And I'm definitely more 99% artist creative driven because that's me. But I have great relationships with the publishers, specifically the ones that I've worked with in the past as a creative. It has served me really, really well to go in and say, look, I know you've done this because I'm in that community. So there sometimes it's a negotiation tactic. Sometimes it's, hey, part of my catalog is in this building. Like, give me a little professional courtesy. But also, when I sit down with a client, I speak their language in a way that a lot of attorneys don't. Because I've been in the trenches.
You were on the opposite side of the table, and then you're like, I know where I got screwed. I know where I benefited. I know, yeah.
And I can say, from a legal perspective, here's why X, Y, and Z. From a songwriting perspective, from someone who's been where you are and where you want to go, I can tell you what practically matters, doesn't matter. What's going to make you in 3 years, you're going to look back at this contract and go, oh, I wish I would have fought for this. Or, man, I fought for this so much and it doesn't even matter,
Yeah.
So
a little bit about founders. I mean, when I was doing research, I mean, you guys don't have small name clients. Like, you have a lot of clients that we actually use. Like, I know Calendly, for example, is a product I've been using for 5 years at this point. I guess, why did you decide to join Founders? I mean, you had your own practice, 2 years, right? And then you went here. It does feel like they have a pretty interesting value proposition.
Yeah, one, it's a group of like-minded attorneys, all rather entrepreneurial on their own. Two, man, they're good at what they do. Like, there's also that. Three, I do a lot. My artists do a lot of trademarking and things like that, but that's not something I do. So it was great for me to be able to go to them and say, hey, all right, now as part of my practice, I have an associate right here that when you have a trademark issue, when you're doing t-shirts or you're doing your band logo or whatever, we got you. And the way that we're set up, as far as the way we attract attorneys to come work with us, it's a great kind of mid-level. It's almost the perfect world of being a solo and having autonomy in my practice, but also having a support system when I need it. It's
like you can take care of the things that you need to take care of and are capable of taking care of, but at the same time, when there are matters that are outside of your hand, and you're like, I can't do the IP stuff, or I can't do the trademark stuff, or I can't do maybe I don't even want to do the litigation stuff, and maybe there's somebody else in the team I can go, here, take this.
Right. We have a matter. We have a copyright matter right now with one of our clients that quite possibly could go to litigation. I now have a litigation team. I don't have to farm it out, and I don't have to do it, which sounds terrible. Not that I don't want to do it. I don't like, but that's a whole different skill set, and that's something I haven't done since law school. So I feel good about giving them that kind of service, but also still having a hand in it and taking care of my clients. And then I don't have to hire, virtual assistants or whatever, or it's, man. And it was one of those things where my practice was growing fast enough that I needed help. And it came along at the right time. I wasn't necessarily looking. Someone had asked me to look at a job on LinkedIn to go possibly in-house somewhere. and found the founders, their ad was right under it. And that's how the conversation started. It was pretty great.
So magical moment. You were like looking, you were like somewhere else, and then this was like pow right in your face, and you're like, it's a sign. Got to go there. This is what I'm doing. So how big is so you're the chair of entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
How big is the entertainment side of your practice right now?
Well, we have there are two of us right now. I just hired an associate that is taking the bar in July. So she will pass. She's fantastic. I'm not worried about it. If I can pass, anybody can. So there were three of us full time. Like all we do is entertainment. We have another attorney in our Atlanta office who does a lot of the trademark work, but will assist in entertainment as needed. She actually does a lot of film and TV work in Atlanta. So anything sort of music related comes to me. Anything sort of film and TV, she and I it'll go to me or her. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious. So obviously at Next Level, right, we're a recruiting agency. We have a couple of different areas, right? So we have Next Level, which is predominantly focused on technology, hypergrowth companies, and video game studios. So we're in the entertainment space as it relates to like video games and stuff. And then we've got Next Attorney, which is like this brand that is helping in-house counsel and private practice law firms scale, right? So you went from entertainment, songwriting to legal. What would you say are the differences, like when you're in a career, when you're interviewing for jobs, when you're trying to get started? Like what would you say were kind of the major differences when you were like, I'm going down to this legal path? And maybe it's I'm trying to get hired, maybe it's trying to go, I am somebody that's doing the hiring now, because you've been in both, right? So
as a songwriter, you don't have a boss. I was signed to publishers, but I didn't have a boss. As an attorney, when I joined the firm, I'm like, wait, I'm accountable to people now. And that's been a long, other than my wife, I haven't been accountable to anybody in 20 something years. So I'm like, oh, okay. And then even when we started having the conversation of me now hiring an associate to work under me, there was a food chain there, right? I still had to go up and say, hey, we're scaling. This is working. I had to go convince the partners that we need this. Wasn't hard. I mean, it was really easy when they saw that I was turning down potential clients because I didn't have the bandwidth. And so, but now the discussions of scalability and too big, too fast versus workflow and training an associate, all of those things, that's a big difference. The commonalities are hard work, be easy to work with. It's relational. I'm mostly a transactional attorney. It's very, very rare that it gets super contentious. Same thing with songwriting. It's very rare. It is about, hey, we both have the common goal. In a transactional world, we have a common goal. You want to sign my client wants to sign with you. Let's make the dollars work. You know what I mean? Let's make the terms work. But there were little things. There were little things that have been, and I will say, even 2 years in, I'm still figuring out. And it's little things that you don't even think about. But like, how do you prefer to redline a contract? Right? Like, songwriters, we're super informal. We're, I would be calling other attorneys going, okay, I'm about to do something with this lawyer. Does he want me to just redline it and throw comments right back? Or do I need a bunch of niceties? You know what I mean? Things like that, things of like inner office workings that, I've never worked in an office. So email, the way email chains work and reply alls and things like that. Dude, as a songwriter, we're so informal. My personal email address is crazy. You know what I mean? So there were things like that have taken a while. One of the things my attorney told me when I was talking about going to law school, she said, you actually have both sides of the brain. She said, of all the songwriters that I represent, you're one of the few that I think could A, get into law school and B, get out, but it's definitely the left and right side of the brain sometimes doing this, sometimes really competing. Um, so you
So
know,
funny.
it,
You're like,
it's really the biggest differences are practical things. The way creatives talk versus the way lawyers talk. It's, I find myself
yeah.
in the middle. So
Yeah, it's real fun when you start redlining when it's like, I am a Google Docs person, I'm a Word Docs person, I'm a third-party docs that have nothing to do with anything that I'm doing type of person. Yeah.
yep.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm
And it's one luckily I'm now starting to work with people over and over and over again, and you're building a relationship. But at first you don't want to be, hey, I'm just going to delete, and I'm not going to tell you why I deleted it. But there are people who do that and prefer it that way. Then there are people that are like, delete, we can't agree to this because blah, 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 or we won't agree to this, period. I'm like learning people's workflows has been the interesting part for me. And watching.
Yeah, my favorite is when you've got a company where it's like, and we deny all red lines. We do not negotiate with terrorists. We do not pass go. Like, no, absolutely not. And you're like, oh, this is going to be fun.
100%.
Red line about 5 more times, and eventually I'll start redlining a little bit less and a little bit less and a little bit less. But like,
yeah,
things will have to.
I was really involved, especially my last 2 publishing deals, on the negotiation side with my lawyer. I loved that part. So, but I mean, it's a learning curve, and I'm 47 years old now, and I'm still learning. I know the ins and outs of the music industry as well as anybody. But the actual practice of law, I'm 2 years in, and I don't even begin to act like I'm more experienced than I am. So, and I mean, we've all had to do it, but I mean, I've had to eat it before. Just send an email and be like, yeah, that's on me.
Yep. I remember it was like 6 years ago. I was redlining a bunch of stuff, and it was specifically me trying to redline a master services agreement that Disney had. I'll tell you what, like that was like the biggest nightmare that I've ever had, was trying to negotiate with Disney. It was like, how long did that? I think it's 3.5 years of like redline negotiations to try to land this one deal back in the day when I was like running sales and running contracts. And I had a software company called Talentful a couple of years ago, and even I was trying to negotiate with Bayer at one point, and it's just like, oh, these are obnoxious.
You know what I've loved though, you mentioned this earlier. I've got to do some video game and some gaming stuff. That actually's been really fun.
What's been your favorite part?
It's similar enough that I feel comfortable, but it's not music, and I think it just feels like, oh, I'm doing something new. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but it still has some of the, I wouldn't say the same, but you still got like interesting like IP and licensing agreements, and international or national regulations. You have console
the skill sets. The skill sets absolutely transfer. But it's anytime I do something that's not music, I'm like, yeah, I did something new. I'm a real lawyer.
Do you like nerd out and start going down some rabbit holes?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I feel like that's how I felt, where it's like, again, we're in the recruiting space, right? And we recruited really heavy in like machine learning, data scientists, software engineering. And then all of a sudden we took this hard left and we're like, I guess we're doing gaming. And I was like, I don't know what a gaming person does. Like, I had no idea the difference between a technical artist and an artist. And then, 3 years later, then we're like, I guess we're doing legal. I guess we'll do that. And it's kind of like the same in like the legal world, where you're like, I guess I kind of know this thing, but not quite. So how do I learn this new thing?
Yep.
Where do you imagine your entertainment book growing the most over the next year?
Man, I have 3 or 4 clients that are ascending their world really, really rapidly right now. And I don't think there's any way to quantify this at all. But I've been told by 2 or 3 different people in the last couple of months, I think you have the fastest growing entertainment practice in Nashville. And I'm getting
That's a big comment. There's a
I
lot of
know.
them out here. That's
Yeah.
a big deal. There's a lot of them out here,
I
man.
don't know that that's true. I just know that it's rolling, you know. But a lot of those kind of bigger buildings are already big, like, you know. So it might be, you know, I go from 1 to 2, from 2 to 4. That's 100% growth. So, you know, that's a one way to quantify it. But, you know, I think I'm starting to do some in the television space with some actors and some screenwriters and producers that I think that's going to grow very quickly. Nashville, Tennessee and Nashville specifically are putting a huge effort into attracting film and television to Tennessee, the same way Atlanta and Georgia has.
Yep.
And I expect that
once that happens, the gaming world will start getting bigger out here. Right now, we've really only got Trega Entertainment, Iron Galaxy, and like Aristocrats, but they really just do hardware stuff, so they don't even do the gaming stuff. But I
anticipate that to grow really rapidly, and then, you know, the music thing, it's a steady growth. So I'm so happy. We just posted a couple of openings on LinkedIn. We're looking for a couple other kind of corporate / IP attorneys here, and then some other support staff positions. So it's rolling, man. I could not be happier, and I love it.
So if somebody was listening to our conversation and they're like, Aaron's team, entertainment, it's growing, that's my thing, that's where I need to be, how do they know if they're the right person to join your practice and Founders Legal?
You know, if you are a go-getter and an entrepreneurial spirit and like autonomy and practice, but also a support system, it's worth a conversation.
Okay.
I mean, that's it because it is each, and of course, each person's employment agreement or whatever, or 1099, whatever you end up being, your affiliation with whatever firm you land is tailored to you and whatever offer. But I will say, man, it has been, I was nervous. I was scared to death going to do it, and I've loved it. Absolutely loved it. So I'm like, every 3 or 4 months, I'm like, I just want to make sure they want to keep me around. So, but that's what I would say. I would say if you enjoy running your practice, but also having a support, and not being micromanaged, hit me on LinkedIn. So and that goes for corporate, that goes for patent, trademark, you know, litigation, especially kind of IP litigation, or entertainment. So entertainment's tough because it's a lot about relationships. When people get out of law school and come to Nashville to do entertainment, or LA or New York, wherever you go to do entertainment, you realize quickly, to be a successful entertainment lawyer, it's a lot of relationship building. And I mean, every practice area is relationships. It's not unique to that, but it is an insulated bubble that sometimes it's hard to poke through.
I have to imagine, like, one of the reasons why your practice could grow so much is people are like, when's Aaron Rice going to be publishing his next song? And then somebody goes, haven't you heard? Like, haven't you heard? You're like, you're out of the loop, clearly. Like, there's something wrong. Like, he's not doing that no more. And then all of a sudden, it's like, boom, sales pitch.
Well, I am. I take at least a day a week to write. I still, and my firm wants me to, because it honestly, it sets me apart. It's a different, you know, I have a track record.
And if you're co-writing, that co-writer could be your client right then and there. So every single time you do a writing session, or do you ever go to any of the write-arounds in town?
I do. And I speak, you know,
favorite write-around in town. Like, where's your favorite place? I go every Thursday. So today I will likely either be at the local, or I'll be at Live Oak. Those are two of my favorite ones to go to.
So
the listening room is pretty cool every once in a while too. But
I like Live Oak. I will say right now my favorite is the listening room, and here's why. I just got two amazing clients there.
fair.
I went to the listening room probably a month and a half ago to hear one of my clients, and one of the artists in the round with her was absolutely phenomenal. And they were talking after, and he was like, "I'm looking for an attorney," and she was like, "Oh, I need to introduce you to my attorney." So she comes and gets me. We talk, and then she's like, "Oh, also, I don't know if you ever listened to Toby Mac or blah, blah, blah." She started listing out my songwriting credits. He's like, "Wait, you're a writer?" And it went from there. So I like the listening room simply because it's been successful for grabbing a few clients.
Plus, the owner, Chris, is a cool guy, and he
Of
does
course.
like a really good job at bringing the right people in. And
But
awesome.
I just went to a round a couple, probably 10 days or so ago at Live Oak. That was fantastic as well. So, but yeah, so I'm still writing. I do that. But it's one of those things where, I mean, I was in a meeting yesterday with an agent, and I had to like connect the dots and be like, "Hey, by the way, I am the same Aaron Rice." Like that happens a lot. Like we get on a Zoom call and they're like, "Dude, I had to see your face to realize it was really you. Like you really went to law school and are doing this." It's like, yep. Right before this call, I had a call with a client that I wrote and produced a single for her, and she's signing an agreement, and I represent the people she's signing with. And she was just like, "I had to call you and just be like, I can't believe you're a lawyer."
That's hilarious. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
Does that like fuel you with joy every single time somebody does that? Where it's just
absolutely. Yeah.
They're like jumbled. They're like, what is going on?
There's a local studio that has a school called the Dark Horse Institute. And I go speak. They have a songwriting production course, and they have a music business course. And I go speak to each of them. So when they call me and they're like, "Hey, can we have you come speak?" I'm like, "Where am I? Am I a writer or am I a lawyer? What am I today?" So it's fun.
So do you ever do any specific like conversations over at like Belmont and stuff? Because I feel like that has to be like a natural, like, hey, like you can do music, but if it doesn't work out,
I have some. I've done them at other schools. I haven't spoken at Belmont since I've been a lawyer.
Okay.
I have as a writer.
I had to ask him at Belmont tomorrow. I'm doing like this Harvard for a day thing, doing a case study.
Cool. Yeah.
The acquisition of Pixar and Disney, and whether or not that was like why that was it. Anyways,
yeah.
I'm not going to bore you with that, but like I'm doing like a giant Harvard for a day case study thing around acquisitions tomorrow. So at Belmont.
Sounds amazing. I'm like, go listen to them talk about acquisitions. No, but for students, that actually is amazing. That sounds like a CLE for me.
Yeah, you're like, and I need a bill to even think about this.
Right. Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, Aaron, I guess some of the closing things that we always like to do, you're in the entertainment industry. I guess one of the things that, I guess unique for you, I'd be curious about is like, what inspired you to become a songwriter in the first place? Right? Like who inspired you? Maybe not even what, but who. Maybe it's a what, maybe it's a who, maybe it's a song, maybe it's the person that wrote the song. I'm like, how did you, like, why was that something that you were passionate about?
I grew up, I mean, it's so trite to say, but man, I grew up in a musical house. Like music was always going in my house. When I was, and I grew up in the 80s and 90s. So, I loved Michael Jackson, like still love. I've passed that love on to my daughter. And I loved the Beatles. And so when I decided to start writing songs, I started writing songs when I was like 15 or 16. I played piano. But then I also played sports in high school, and sports won. And I went to high school and college really thinking I wanted to be a basketball coach. That was kind of my career goals. It wasn't till I was in Nashville, did not move here to be a songwriter, but in Nashville, in a
there was a billboard that said "Become a
Right.
songwriter" next to it.
I actually happened to move in. I moved in with a friend that I was in a garage band in high school with. He was here doing the music thing, and I ended up just starting writing with some friends again, and it kind of worked. And so I never went to grad school and to be a basketball coach or whatever. But what I did do is I did sort of the same thing with songwriting that I did with lawyering. Is when I decided I was going to do it, I dove in. And so I studied, and I started with Michael Jackson and Paul McCartney, and literally like studied lyric writing, studied melody formation, all of those things. And it worked. And then I've always loved, and I love it now, the power of the word. And you know, I've had 2 careers that are both about putting words together. So
fair, even now, right?
Yep. Which is funny because sometimes I'll like be talking and stumble over my words, and I'm like, I have 2 careers that are all about communication, and I can't right now.
That's yeah. And then, so you're in Nashville today, correct?
Yep.
Where is your guys' office at?
My office is actually in Cool Springs, in Franklin.
Cool Springs.
So yeah,
okay.
We're in the Spaces building in Cool Springs.
Nice. Yeah. So there's the Cool Springs Spaces, and then there's those spaces that's downtown Bank of America building, where Universal Music Group is, right? Same building.
And I'll use that if I'm downtown. I'll use that sometimes. Yep.
Well, on June 7th, we will be hosting a event called Founders Live. Just saying. So it'll be in that building with spaces.
Well, Jamie, let me know. I actually have to be in Atlanta at a firm-wide meeting.
Well, it was with a shot.
Yeah.
Well, Aaron, I don't have any more today, man, and I know we're getting ready to run out of time. And I really, really appreciate you investing in a conversation. I absolutely love your story. I love your journey. I love how you were, you know, basketball coach dreams to music to legal. You know, maybe astronaut in 10 years. I have no idea. Like, probably not astronaut. It has nothing to do with the power of word. I don't know what's next. Maybe it's.
Yeah, who knows?
Who knows? We'll wait for the Billboard sign to tell you next time, right?
Right. Whatever's going on down I-24 next week.
That's awesome. Well, again, Aaron, really appreciate it. And everybody listening, like if you have future comments, if you want to get a hold of Aaron, what's the best way to reach you?
Man, I actually do respond well to LinkedIn. Or go to the founderslegal.com site and just hit the contact button. It'll get right to me.
Fantastic. So get a hold of Aaron on LinkedIn and or Founders Live, not Founders Live, Founders Legal. I'm stuck in my own world, man. I'm pitching myself instead. Just kidding. Well, again, Aaron, really appreciate it. And thank you everybody for listening.
Thanks so much.
Next in